Welcome to a Legendarium special about Charles Vane, the Caribbean pirate who refused a pardon. In this episode, we will learn about the man who refused an offer of clemency and went on to become one of the last pirates of the Caribbean. Very little is known about Vane's early life, including his parents, his birthplace, and any formal education he enjoyed. It seems that no one cared much about him until he turned pirate. He arrived in Port Royal, Jamaica sometime during the War of Spanish Succession during the early 1700s. He likely served as a privateer during this war. He and his comrades received a letter of marque from the British governor, which allowed them to seize and loot Spanish ships for king and country. In 1714, the war ended, but why would the privateers wish to go back to hard work and low pay? Instead, Charles Vane began serving under the infamous pirate Henry Jennings, based on the Bahamian island of Nassau. From Jennings, Vane learned to make captives talk by running burning matches along their skin. In late July 1715, a hurricane sunk a Spanish treasure fleet off the coast of Florida, dumping tons of Spanish gold and silver into the ocean not far from the shore. As the surviving Spanish sailors salvaged what they could, pirates hurried to the wreck site. Jennings, with Vane on board, raided the Spanish camp on shore, making off with 87,000 British pounds in gold and silver. In January 1718, King George I of England issued a pardon for all pirates who wished to return to an honest life. Many accepted, including Jennings. Vane, however, scoffed at the notion of retirement and became the leader of those in Jennings' crew who refused a pardon. Vane and his men outfitted a small sloop called the Lark for service as a pirate vessel. On February 23, 1718, the royal frigate HMS Phoenix arrived in Nassau, part of an attempt to persuade the remaining pirates to accept the royal pardon at gunpoint. Vane and his men became prisoners, but the governor released them as a goodwill gesture to other would-be pirates. That proved a foolish choice. Within a couple of weeks, Vane recruited 40 of Nassau's most bloody-minded cutthroats, including veteran buccaneer Edward England and Calico Jack Rackham. By April 1718, Vane had a handful of small ships and readied for action. He captured 12 merchant ships in one spectacular month. He and his men treated captured sailors and merchants with great cruelty, whether they surrendered or fought. Vane's men bound one sailor hand and foot and tied him to the top of the bowsprit. The pirates threatened to shoot him if he did not reveal where they could find treasure. When the sailor failed to tell Vane's men what they wanted to hear, they sent him to meet God. Vane's hunting grounds ranged from the Bahamas as far north as New York. However, Vane knew that Woodes Rogers, the bloody-minded and pirate-hating new governor of the Bahamas, would arrive soon. To convince Rogers to give him a wide berth, Vane took a 20-gun French ship as his flagship. Throughout June and July 1718, Vane took more than enough merchant ships to keep his dogs of war well fed. At the end of the hunting season, Vane re-entered Nassau in triumph. On July 24, 1718, as Vane and his men prepared to set off again, a Royal Navy frigate sailed into the harbor. Vane controlled both the harbor and its fort, which flew a pirate flag. Vane welcomed the governor by firing upon his fleet, then sent a letter to Governor Rogers demanding that he be allowed to sell his plundered goods before accepting the king's pardon. The governor politely declined. To escape, Vane set fire to his flagship and sent it towards the Royal Navy. The British ships cut anchor lines to avoid a fiery death. This stunning escape made the news even in faraway London. For a time, Vane lived in North Carolina, where Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, briefly settled down to married life in respectable society. That did not stop Blackbeard from joining Vane's week-long party, the largest such pirate assemblage in American history. However, storm clouds gathered as Vane's voyage continued. He angered his crew with cruel punishments like keel hauling, which involved tying a person up with rope, throwing them overboard, and then dragging them along the entire length of the ship's underside. Barnacles on the ship meant a ripped and shredded back. If a shark came by, the crew might only hoist up a severed arm or leg. On November 23, 1718, Vane ordered an attack on a French warship. However, the French proved more than a match for him, and Vane withdrew. His furious crew, led by Calico Jack Rackham, retired him from the captaincy at sword point. With 15 loyal men, Vane took command of a tiny sloop. Despite this, Vane captured another 5 ships by December 1718, only to lose everything to a hurricane off the coast of Honduras. Most of Vane's crew went to Davy Jones' locker, while he found himself marooned on a small island. After a few miserable months, a British ship found him. Vane tried to pass himself off as an honest sailor, but an officer recognized him as a pirate. Thus, the British put Vane in chains and invited him to enjoy the accommodations of the lovely jail in Spanish Town, Jamaica. When Vane went on trial in March 22, 1721, no one doubted the verdict. After many of Vane's victims testified against him, he danced the gallows jig on March 29, 1721 at Gallows Point in Port Royal. His body hung from a gibbet near the harbor entrance as a warning to other aspiring pirates. Vane is remembered today as one of the most unrepentant pirates of all time. His refusal to accept a pardon gave other like-minded pirates a leader to rally around, yet the hanging and display of his body helped to end the Golden Age of Piracy. That wraps things up for this episode of the Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe, and if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.